indeed my pleasure to welcome you to the National Workshop on Air Pollution and Agricultural Productivity with the theme Air, Land and Livelihoods, Building a Sustainable Agricultural Future for Nigeria. Please put your hands together if your hands are not busy. So, very quickly, before we go into the agenda set for today, I would like us to actually do something that I love to do. People who know me know I like to smile. Most people know me for my smile. So, I'd like us to stand up, meet two or more people, and just say something to make them smile. Anything, think of anything. You could compliment their look, what you're putting on. Just smile. I've seen some people not doing anything. Please, two or more people. I did say two people, two or more people. No one has come here. The gentleman here. Hello. It's really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much. That was really beautiful. So, how did you feel having to smile? Good, I guess. All right. Today, like I said, we're going to be exploring a lot of things in agriculture. The intricate links between air quality, land use, and agricultural productivity, and how we can strengthen policies and practices that protect both our environment and the farmer's livelihood. Now, before we get right into it, I would like us to put our hands together as loud as we can. Please put your hands together for yourselves for actually being here today. For yourselves, you can be louder than that. All right, so at this time, please join me in welcoming the publisher of Business Day Nigeria in person of Mr. Frank Aibogo. He's going to be delivering the welcome address. Please put your hands together and do not stop until he gets here.
Morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I have great pleasure to welcome you this morning. I think my role is a very simple one, which is to offer you a profound welcome to this event with the theme Air, Land, and Livelihoods, Building a Sustainable Agricultural Future for Nigeria. Allow me to begin by acknowledging and appreciating the presence of our guests. I'm told that we will be joined by our friends from the government at some point in the course of today's event. We also would like to take the opportunity to appreciate for their support the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. Your attendance underscores the national importance of today's event. This workshop will not have been possible without the valued partnership of our sponsor, Structural Transformation and Economic Growth Stake, a research initiative funded by the FCDO. This workshop comes at a pivotal time for Nigeria, a time when our nation must confront the undeniable link between environmental health and agricultural productivity. Air pollution, long treated as an urban inconvenience, has now become an agricultural threat. It comprises soil volatility, reduces crop yield, and disturbs delicate ecological balance required for optimal food production. For Business Day, convening this forum reflects our ongoing commitment to being more than a chronicler of economic events. We do not just want to be those who talk only about what is happening. We want to join in setting agenda because we see ourselves as a vital bridge between policy and practice. And by hosting this event, we aim to spotlight the urgent need for integrated strategies that align agricultural growth with environmental stewardship, ensuring that productivity does not come at the cost of health of our planet. As I said, the theme for today captures that balance rather perfectly. It reminds us that the air we breathe, the land we till, and the livelihoods we build are inseparable parts of one ecosystem. Sustainable agriculture cannot thrive in a polluted environment, and clean air cannot be sustained without responsible land use. The two are not competing interests, there are indeed complementary imperatives. In recent years, BusinessDay has expanded its focus on public policy, sustainability, and climate discourse because we recognize that Nigeria's growth story will increasingly be shaped by how well we manage these interdependencies. The private sector has a crucial role to play through green innovation, investment in cleaner technologies, and data driven practices that support both profitability as well as environmental balance. As we deliberate today, let us keep our eyes on actionable outcomes, practical frameworks, viable partnerships, and policies that empower farmers, protect our ecosystem, and strengthen Nigeria's food security in the face of environmental challenge. I urge you all, our distinguished partners, or participants from both government and private institutions, from civil society and industry, to use this platform not only for the exchange of ideas, but to forge enduring collaborations. I believe that together we can define what a sustainable agriculture future truly means for Nigeria. On that note, I welcome you once again warmly to this event, and I thank all our partners and guests for supporting businesses' mission to drive dialogue, inform policy, and advance national progress. Thank you so much, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.
Now with the mic, don't stop clapping. Put your hands together for the publisher Business Day Nigeria, Frank Aigogo. From everything he said from the welcome address, a part actually caught my attention, and that's the part about sustainable agriculture. It cannot thrive in a polluted environment, and clean air cannot be sustained without responsible land use. And also, the two are not competing interests, rather, they are complementary imperative. That is rather powerful. And to actually build on what I just said, we are going to now move into the presentation that will be done by Dr. Wokolo Arize. I'm going to be doing a brief introduction of Dr. Nwokolo. He's going to be speaking on key strategies for sustainable land management and also agricultural innovation. Please let's put our hands together for him. Please, as loud as you can, please put your hands together for Dr. Arize Nwokolo.
Thank you. Even though she said key strategies, I'll try to make it as brief as possible. And I'd also like to thank Business Day for organizing this, and also Steg for sponsoring this from the UK. And actually, what I'm going to present to you is what Steg has sponsored to be done for Nigeria. And the idea behind the paper is to see what is the impact of gas flaring in agricultural productivity in Nigeria. because we have realized that gas flaring is actually having a lot of impact for farmers within that region. And given the fact that Nigeria is facing a lot of food insecurity, it calls the question, what can we do to reduce this lack of production in the Niger Delta region and also in the South region? So, sorry, I think the point is not working. Yes. Okay. So the motivation of this paper is the fact that gas flaring is a global issue. It affects not just Nigeria, it also affects the world in general. So this is like an article from the Financial Times last year. And recently, the data from the World Bank shows that gas flaring has actually increased to about 151 billion cubic meters. And if you convert that to carbon dioxide, that is approximately 389 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which is a lot of pollution. And then you also see that that gas flaring is causing a lot of issue in terms of methane emissions in the US, and also the fact that it relates to fossil fuel sector calls for attention. What is the oil sector doing to reduce this? Now, if you have not heard about gas flaring, just to give you kind of a brief insight, now gas flaring is a consequence of oil production. Part of the design of oil production is that there has to be a gas flare so that you could say the system does not blow up. So it's a kind of a safety measure that they use. Now, the other thing is the oil sector has no incentive to invest in infrastructure that will store gas and actually be used in a sustainable way. Reason being that the gas price in the international market is way low compared to the oil price in the international market. So it doesn't make sense for them to actually store gas and then sell. Because it doesn't make sense economically speaking, they decide to flare, okay, which is what they have been doing for a couple of years. So, having said that, if you look at the top flaring countries, gas flaring countries in the world, you see that you have Russia, Iran, Iraq, of course, US is also there. And then if you now look at Africa, you have Algeria, then Nigeria. Of course, when you talk about sub-Saharan Africa, you talk about Nigeria. And we are the only ones in terms of the top 10 that are flaring gas within the sub-Saharan Africa. Also makes sense given that we are one of the biggest producers of oil within Africa. And then the question we now ask is, what is the impact of gas flaring on agricultural productivity? By agricultural productivity, I actually mean crop yield and land labor productivity, okay, of the farmers within that region. Just to give you a bit of context, if you look at this graph, you see that something happened here in 2010, which was the Local Content Act that was passed in April 2010. And you also see that based on this graph, you have a lot of local companies moving onshore compared to offshore. Okay. In a minute, I'll show you why this is important to the study. So you have a lot of companies, most of the companies actually going onshore compared to offshore. Then secondly, you see that based on this graph, you also see that in terms of gas flaring intensity, you have more local companies flaring gas than the multinationals, which calls the question. Normally, when we talk about gas flaring, we always think, it is the likes of Shell, Chevron, they are the ones doing it. But the data, especially from NNPC, showing something different. It's actually not the multinationals doing the gas flaring. It's actually the local companies doing more of the gas flaring. And you see that in that graph that even though the gas flaring seems to be for the local companies, it seems to be going up and down. It spiked in 2010, went down 2011, then spiked again in 2012. All right. And then went down 2014 and is going up in 2015 based on the latest data from the NNPC. So it calls the question that it is not the multinationals that are actually causing us a lot of harm. It is our own people that are causing us a lot of harm. So question is, how do we address this? Okay. Now here you see a map of the country, and the red dots that you see are where the flare locations are. Remember that the previous graph I showed you about onshore and offshore, and seeing that local companies are playing more in the onshore than in the offshore. Now, if you look very closely, you see that most of the flares are occurring where? Onshore, okay, than offshore. So because they are doing that, we now see, okay, where are the farmers located? So given the data that we got from the World Bank and also from the Nigerian Living Standard Measurement Survey, across from 2010 to 2018, we are able to kind of pinpoint, where the farmers are located, right? At least within a 5 kilometer radius where the farmers are located. And showing that we see that most of the farmers, especially in the southern region, are very close to where the gas flares are taking place. And then what part of the model that we use is to look at if it is within a buffer zone of 20 kilometers, taking into consideration that farmers are within 5 kilometer radius, we push it to 20 kilometers, what happens? All right, in terms of the impact of the gas flares exposure to these farmers, in terms of productivity, crop yields, and also labor productivity. So this is where we got the data from. I mentioned Living Standard Measurement Survey and then the NOSTRA, the National Oil Spill Detection Response Agency. And if you if you look at the results, you see something that you could say calls attention that for every farmer within a 20-kilometer radius of a gas flaring site, the crop yield actually goes down by 19% compared to farmers that are not within 20 kilometers. And the labor productivity actually goes down by, crop yield by 18%, and labor productivity goes down by 19%. And when we trace this using satellite data of local pollutants like black carbon, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide, we actually see a spike in the increase of black carbon, which, based on anecdotal evidence, also makes sense because if you go to Port Harcourt, there's a lot of black soot in the air that you once you wipe your face with a handkerchief, you actually feel it. So, and that is the black carbon we're talking about. All right. So in those places, there's a lot of air pollution, and that affects farmers in the sense of health. Farmers are sick, especially during harvest period, to actually go and harvest their crops. And then we now ask, what is the policy implication of this? Right. And with this slide, I'll end. Now, the first thing we always try to do, at least in this kind of studies, is you know there is a problem. The next thing you seek is how can the problem be solved? So the first thing you now say, okay, what are the regulations? Is there any regulation around this that we can look into? And of course, in Nigeria, we have regulations, okay, which is good. But the question here is, are the regulations enforceable? And that is where we are failing a lot. It is not enforceable. And there's even another tweak to it, which is something that you see, I colored it in red, that the payments for gas flaring. So based on the regulation, every company that flares gas, all right, above, you could say, once you produce above 50,000 barrels per day, you are by law required to pay a penalty expenditure of $2. That is $2 per 28.317 standard cubic meters of gas flared. Now that is $2. And you see that it's not sufficient. Paying $2 is almost like you're giving incentives to the oil companies to flare, knowing that $2 is nothing to them. Which is also comes back to the thing about, can this be enforced? Even if it is enforced, to oil companies or to those that flare gas, it is nothing. The cost of flaring gas is nothing to them. So they are still willing to flare gas because what they'll do is just pay the cost and it's just minimum amount of what they earn. Secondly, and this is also something that called my attention, is we lack scientific evidence of like environmental cost of gas flaring, especially to farmers. And part of this reason is we do not have data sources that can measure the exact amount of gas flaring for each oil field within the areas where the farmers are. And personally, I think this is strategic. Okay, it is strategic because if you are able to measure the exact amount of gas flared and not only rely on the oil companies to report the amount of gas fled, then you are able to actually enforce the penalty for gases fled. But if you rely on the oil sectors to do this, then nothing stops them from misreporting or not reporting at all. And if you look at a lot of NNPC reports, both annual and monthly, some oil companies don't report gas flaring, even though they tell you that they have produced a lot of oil, especially with the local companies. And you now ask yourself, hold on a sec, is it possible to produce oil without gas flaring? No. So why are they not reporting it? And why is NNPC or other regulators not enforcing that fact that they should report the gas flaring? So that calls the question, they need to revisit the regulation and to find ways of enforcing the law. What that also means is you need to invest in infrastructure, because to measure gas flaring, you need tools to measure that. So you need to invest in infrastructure. But until we do that, then farmers within the southern region, close to where the gas are being fled, would always produce less than what is required. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please put your hands together for him again. That was very, very insightful. I don't know why the ladies are finding it very hard to clap. I don't know. So I would like to hear the ladies put their hands together for Mr. Rinze. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to be proceeding to the next phase of the conversation and why we are gathered today, and that is going to be the panel section. Now, this section will feature experts and stakeholders who will share their perspectives on creating integrated climate smart agricultural policy. So I would want to hear our clap as loud as I can because our hands are obviously not busy. So once I start calling out our panelists, put your hands together for Terry Akaluzia. Terry, put your hands together for him. He's a senior associate and team lead in mergers, acquisition, and private equity practice at Olaniwo Ajayi LP. He has deep experience advising investors, corporate, and financial institutions on high value deals across diverse sectors, including agribusiness. Terry brings a commercial perspective to how Nigeria's legal and institutional framework can better align with sustainability and environmental accountability. That is actually a very strong bio. I don't know why we're not clapping. Please put your hands together for Terry. All right, next on the panel, we have Bankole Oloruntoba. Please put your hands together for Mr. Bankole Oloruntoba. Is the country lead of Nigeria Climate Innovation Center, NCIC, where it drives climate smart entrepreneurship and sustainable solutions that foster green growth across Nigeria's agriculture and energy sector. And he has over a decade of experience in innovation management, venture building, and ecosystem development. And he has been instrumental in nurturing climate resilient enterprises and advancing Nigeria's transition to a low carbon economy. Please put your hands together for him. And also on the panel today, we have Abiodun Olorundero. Please put your hands together for him as he makes his way to the front. He's an experienced farmer, which is very beautiful. Please put your hands together. It's not every day we get to see farmers. An experienced farmer, agribusiness advisor, and farm operations manager with over a decade of hands-on expertise across the agricultural value chain. He's also the founder and managing partner of Presence Farm, an integrated agricultural enterprise offering diverse products and services that promote efficiency and sustainability, which is part of what we are going to be speaking about today. Please put your hands together for him. And finally, on the panel list, we have Prof. Nene Barin Zabe. Is the project coordinator of the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project under Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Environment. He's also a renowned environmental scientist. He was formerly a professor of biomonitoring and restoration ecology at the University of Port Harcourt and a UNEP senior national expert on mangrove ecosystem. He's not here, but he'll be joined, represented by Mr. Miguel, and he'll be doing that virtually. Please put your hands together. And of course, like they say, a panel is not complete if there is no moderator to it, right? Am I right? Please let's be enthusiastic about it. Am I right? All right. So, the person of Fei Shola Jai Simi, she's going to be moderating this wonderful panel. She's also an agriculture and environmental journalist for Business Day. That is actually big. Please put your hands together for her.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome you again to this beautiful event. We hope that you'll be able to get 18 or 2 at the end of this panel conversation. The panel we have on this panel experts, people with decades of experience in their field, who we believe would do justice to the conversation before us. Thank you so much, Mr. Abiodun. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Bankole. Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Kaluzia. Thank you for being here. So we'll just delve into the question. We'll be looking at the topic, which is airline and livelihoods, building a sustainable agricultural future for Nigeria. We know that agriculture and environment are interconnected. It means that whatever happens to the environment invariably affects agriculture, which eventually affects our goal, our vision for food security. And so I would like to ask Mr. My first question is to Mr. Abiodun. There have been a lot of reports online on the media that says that farmers do not practice sustainable agriculture. For a lot of farmers engage in practices that do not help the soil, and that because they want to make profits, so they use a lot of chemicals that affect the soil. They farm in conserved um, agricultural spaces that are supposed to be places that are supposed to be conserved, and which eventually leads to biodiversity loss. And so I would just like to ask Mr. Abiodun, for someone who's been in the with over a decade of farming experience, Mr. Abiodun is always on the farm. When you call him, he's always on the farm. So for someone with over a decade of farming experience, what are some sustainable farming methodologies that you have adopted yourself to just ensure that you engage in sustainable agriculture?
All right. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So I would say that, I like the perspective Dr. came in from when he gave his presentation. Um, and I would say that I have, even though my family is here in Ogun State and Oyo State, um, the emission you talked about, the carbon. I remember a few years ago, I was on my farm and I had watermelon planted under irrigation. And we've been, irrigating. And one morning, I just go to the farm and I saw black substance on my crops. But guess what? It didn't survive eventually. I lost that crop. Now, what have we adopted over the years is because of climate change, due to um, emission, we now do irrigation. We do not rely so much on rainfall anymore. As I speak to you, this is the month of November. We have just tilled our soil again yesterday, planted maize. Again, no farmer would venture into maize. I don't encourage farmers to go into planting of maize once is mid-September. Past mid-September, down south here. In the north, it's a no-no. But I, I'm going ahead because I've been able to adopt the irrigation system. Okay, it means that planting yesterday, today, means that I'm looking forward to my harvest in January. Again, because that has worked for us over the years. Unfortunately, a lot of farmers are still yet. So, once I get into this, my farmers around me, a lot of them who are illiterate, are always like, "Are you sure?" about what you are doing. And once they see the irrigation work, they're like, okay. But they have still not been able to get themselves to understand how this. I mean, practically they believe in rain-fed agriculture. Guess what? I see. I mean, I was on the farm yesterday, and I saw somebody who had just planted his maize maybe about 2 weeks ago, just 3, 4 leaf stage. And then I'm saying, this is not going to solve. I said, don't worry, God will do it. And I really, so I've been able to get into the practice of smart agriculture by, using irrigation system, not just relying on rain fed. Also, is the application of organic manures. Um, Yesterday as well, I had some rotten grains, that didn't meet up with the market the last time, and I had my staff, spread it on the farm. And somebody came and said, Oga, what is what you're doing again? I said, what does it look like to you? Does it look like I'm planting this grain? He said, no. I mean, think. I said, okay, for money. I said, yeah. So guess what? I have some 3, 4 bags of fertilizer I bought some 2, 3 years ago. I've not had to use them as much as I used in the past because I realized that consistent use of um, chemicals have adverse impact on your soil. And I have this practical example. 2 years ago, I got poultry waste manure from a farm and I bought them and I stored them and I kept them somewhere on the farm. And so when we moved them away, we planted some some stems of cassava in those areas in other areas. Guess what? In 6 months, I mean, I'll tell you that cassava doesn't mature in 6 months, but I'll say that in 6 months, right, those tubers were as big as the same stems. So the areas where we didn't have those manures, right, you think that they were planted, 2 weeks ago. So that opened my mind again to see that fertilizer is not going to do it for us. We need to go back to nature, right? To green energy. The same way we also get access to water from the pond, right, which has a lot of nitrogen, okay, to spray, our chemical, I'm sorry, our plants. Now we are used to using chemicals as well, pesticide and insecticide, but 2, 3 years ago, I got to know about neem oil. Neem oil is gotten from neem seed. I mean, some of us call it dogoyaro. That's a local name. And that's what I use. And it's been effective for me. So I think these are a few um, strategies that we have brought into our system of agriculture that has worked for us or is still working for us, I mean, over the years. Thank
Thank you so much, Mr. Biodun. Thank you so much for wonderful insights. Mr. Terry, for somebody who is in the policy sector, what will you say about farmers who do not have anything to do with sustainable agriculture? They do not care about sustainable agricultural practices, and so because of that, they also do not care about the impact of their activities on the environment. What policy reforms do you think that would you recommend to ensure that environmental protection are taken more seriously?
Okay, thanks. I'm not in the policy space. I'm just a male lawyer. Yeah, but in terms of that, really, I think just piggybacking off what Doctor said, I don't think what we lack in this part is really a lack of policy per se, right? Our laws are not great. They could be better written to focus, on the industry itself, right? But I think really it comes down to one key question: how are they enforced? If we fix the enforcement issue, really, you'd have a situation where there'll be more deterrence from people, undertaking environmentally harmful acts and all of that. So if we fix that issue, I think that would really solve and get us where we need to be.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the issues that we have actually is policy enforcement. So we have a lot of policies, we have a lot of reforms, but they are weak. They are not strongly enforced. And so thank you so much, Mr. Akaluzia. Um, Mr. Bankole, we know that you have a lot of experience in climate change. We know that you are somebody who is an expert in climate subjects. So, what kind of innovation do you think that we can adopt to ensure that the impacts of agricultural pollution is minimized?
Okay. As an expert,
Yes,
I would say,
as a climate expert, sir.
that word is it's a very weird word. So let me speak about innovation. So the NCIC, for about the 8 years that we've been in existence, some of the some of the innovation scene that works also helps farmers, to be able to take a better step. But first things first is you need to understand whether the innovation that you're bringing, whether it is affordable, right? Farmers afford it. So then we might flog farmers that farmers are not thinking in sustainable cost of having to be sustainable. And so for us, from one of our first incubation programs, which was funded by Olon in 2019, we had a startup called Sponvatech, and what Sponvatech was doing was solar irrigation. So again, irrigation using petrol or diesel, it's not bad, but if we really want to be sustainable that long, we need to also find more innovative ways, to be able to capture things like. And so what Sponvatech did was to create a system where we can harness the sun. We don't need to use battery, except we want to go ahead to do precise irrigation. So except you want to do that, but if you want to go directly, direct intervention just to irrigate farms, the solar, the Sponvatech solar pump, solar irrigation pump, was what they came with, and he has been in existence ever since. And I think he's doing some marvelous things in the north, and also in the south. Um, we had um, we had a gentleman who was creating feeds from black social fly. So they farm flies, turn them into maggots, and then change them into feeds for both poultry and also aquaculture. Um, we also had we had briquettes, and briquettes in this case again is where you use and farm waste for maybe cooking, like, because um, cooking is either you cut the forest, or you use charcoal, or you use gas, or petrol. But with the clean cooking program, briquette is the energy source. And briquette is done using, it's a circular form. It's called circular form of energy generation, where you use waste to create another source of energy. So many clean cooking stoves that you find around rely on briquettes, and briquettes are made out of corn cobs, rice husk, uh, that time, but it really doesn't smell like that. Uh, and then and we had someone who also wanted to use Eco Tutu.
Yeah,
I'm sure Eco Tutu is a bit popular. I'm sure Eco Tutu is the cold chain using
yes.
solar, to insulate and store, and to improve storage. We had people who came up with solar dryers as well. In fact, solar dryers has been in existence for a while. And you have companies who fabricate these things that much. Um, in terms of breeds, we didn't get that much of scientific, entries in all of our 8 years. It's still a bit scientific entries. So I think that they see a whole lot of work for us to do, and the future of NCIC's work is to see more climate smart innovation, researches being targeted toward food security. Um, we had people, someone came up with a capture, with a carbon credit, capturing system. Um, and then there was another who does filtration using its own technology, which was a bit more nimbler and also cheaper than and all existing techs that we found. So I think within this space we've seen logistics, so solutions at times. People using keke for distribution. It might sound ridiculous, but again, battery power keke can really work. Can really really do the job, and it takes quite a number of them from farm to their local communities and co. So when you look at the kinds of innovation that we found, right, these are innovations that are market target friendly, meaning that people need them at that point. So productive use of innovation also. We had a few other very brilliant ones that was way beyond our own reach. So
Thank you so much, Mr. Bankole. I think one key thing that you mentioned here is crisis finance. So it's not that farmers do not want to engage in sustainable agriculture, or financing is a big challenge that a lot.
No, well, finance you might say, but also pricing also, is the could also be an issue, because if you spend so much to create a sustainable farm and your price cannot compete with he that they didn't spend that much, there'll be problems. So pricing for us has always been like a major challenge, not because that the money is not available, but the pricing sometimes does not align with what the market
Market
wants to
is
pay.
saying.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that beautiful insight. So it means that sustainable agriculture is not is not cheap, and even when it comes at an affordable price, a lot of people cannot compete because some other people are not engaging in the activities that they are that people who engage in sustainable agriculture, they use coaching, they use organic matters. So those things are not cheap, and so they might not be able to compete with other people who do not use those mediums. Thank you so much. I don't know if Mr. Unwango, I don't know if I'm getting the pronunciation right. Apologies, Mr. Unwango, Mr. Unwango, Wigo. Okay, Mr. Wigo, please. I don't know if you are here with us. Can you hear us, sir? Okay, we cannot hear you. Please help us. Before while we wait for the media to set it up, I would just like to come back again to Mr. Akaluzia. So, what are some existing models of environment? What existing models of environmental governance um, that are there existing models for in agriculture that can guide farmers? Are there existing agricultural models that can guide farmers towards achieving a sustainable agriculture? In
No,
your own, with the experience that you have, are there some models that we have that are agricultural friendly that can help towards achieving a sustainable agriculture?
thanks for that. I think what we've seen so far, if you take a look at other jurisdictions, for instance, in the EU, even in places like Kenya, and we don't have as much here. I think as it's still a bit developing. And even though the policy from the government is to sort of shift from, oil-based reliance, right, into agriculture and manufacturing. But I think generally the policy most times you find in other countries is to ensure that, defaulters mainly in terms of environmental issues, they sort of pay heavy fines and ensure that, damages to the lands. They sort of focus on, ensuring that damages to the land is it's a key issue. Or it's focused on more or less. So not in terms of models for farmers in that sense, in terms of ensuring that the land is also, sustainable practices, more or less, but not really for farmers in that light. I hope that's there.
Oh, okay. So, so what you mean is that a fine is placed on people who do not abide to given policies.
So beyond just cleaning up lands, and I think Doctor had mentioned a large chunk of the issues we have with land and the environment in these parts comes from the oil sector.
Yes.
Right? And existing legislation so far sort of focuses on land cleanup as opposed to land remediation. Right. And so beyond cleaning up, ensure that the land is actually put in a place where you can actually have sustainable farming on it.
Yes.
So that has really been the focus as opposed to just merely cleaning up and abandoning the commissioning your equipment on the plot.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I would just like to give a highlight for some of the conversations, some of the key things that our speakers have said today. Mr. Abiodun mentioned that um, used to achieve sustainable agriculture, we have to look beyond today. We have to look beyond the gains of today. We need to look beyond the gains of today. We need to begin to look at how can we ensure that our farms are not just used today, but they can also be used tomorrow. What kind of practices do we have? Do we use to ensure that in the next 5 years this land is still fertile for crops to germinate? Thank you so much. Again, I would like to come back to Mr. Biodun. I don't know if Mr. Uwogo if he's back. Mr. Wogo, can you hear us, sir? We can hear you faintly. Okay, actually, I'll just go ahead and ask my question. Yes, thank you so much for being with us. We understand that you could not join us physically. Yes, I said thank you so much for. Yes, sir. Can you? We can hear you. Yes, I would just like to ask that we know that. Yes, sir, I'm with you. Can you hear me? Yes, we know that highlight. We know that your organization, which is we know you're representing Professor Zabi, and we know that HiRep does a lot of remediation activities. So we'd just like to know what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had, especially in regions that are polluted, regions that are environmental polluted. What are some of the remediations that you have taken to ensure that agricultural polluted regions are cleared?
That's my boss. The project coordinator of IPEP is on this Zoom. Currently, as if you can, let me just be the one or two you can hear.
Yes, Professor Zabi, can you hear us? We cannot hear you, sir. Okay.
He's airborne, so I'll quickly. Yeah, kindly just say a few words.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, Prof. Okay, I think there's a bit of technical issues. While we wait for that. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you, sir. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Okay, so while we wait for that to be settled.
So, as we got there, I'm airborne. What we can do. But can you just ask the first question? Let me provide background before we take off.
Yes, the question is what are some of the biggest challenges you've had in ensuring that agricultural polluted regions are cleared? What are some of the remediation um, what are some of the remediation challenges that you've had in ensuring that environments that have been polluted, ensuring that they have got back to their normal state? What challenges do you have? Okay, I think we have a bit of technical issue. And so I'll come back again to Mr. Biodun, who has over a decade. Yes, sir, we can hear you. No, sir, we cannot hear you. Please, I would just want the. Yes, we cannot hear you, sir. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. Again, Mr. Biodun, I'll come back to you. So, what are the biggest financial challenges that you've had? What are. Yes. So I know you mentioned that you engage in organic, you try to engage in organic farming, you try to use cow dung, you try to do irrigation. What are some financial challenges or policy challenges that you have had in your own experience as a farmer?
Okay. So incidentally, Mr. Lauren Toba, right, mentioned something around pricing.
Hmm.
And I would say that agriculture in this part of the world is a sector where, I mean, the layer is here. You know what it costs you to go to court, what to put papers together. I know what it cost me, but I cannot determine. I mean, how do you go into a business that can determine what your final price will be? Um, Earlier this year, price of okay, so in my farm area, there's this local way of selling cassava tubers in baskets. Earlier this year it was about 70,000 naira for that basket. Today, right? And then you get paid almost immediately. Today, the same basket sells for 30,000 naira. I probably don't get paid until like 2 weeks after, and all of that. So, um, these are things, there are a couple of things that are not under your control. As much as you can do your bit to ensure that your outputs, farm produce comes out well, but the pricing itself is a challenge. Now, how do I invest so much in irrigation, buying solar powered pump, and at the end of the day, I don't even break even. Okay, so it's a major challenge in terms of funding. Again, for I mean about 15 years of practicing agriculture, I've only heard that government is giving out funds. I've not met anybody directly. I mean, I have an account to Bank of Agriculture. I'm sure that account is dormant today. You know, I mean, when people come to me and say BOA, I say BOA doesn't have money. I mean, forget about BOA. So again, my agric journey has been self-funded and then partnership at some point in time. So again, I will tell you that funding has been a major challenge in this industry. Um, if I come to you for a loan, I mean, if I'm coming, I'm probably coming for a soft loan, maybe zero interest loan, because I might get into trouble. That's why I tell farm people that don't, if you're going to agriculture, don't go to the bank. Rather talk to your friends, talk to your family members, talk to friends who can, support you and say, okay, can I get this fund? I mean, and ensure that again you must get the knowledge, right? Knowledge is key. If you don't have the knowledge of what you want intend to do, all your funds may go down the drain, right? So over the years, personally, I've been able to build a couple of shock absorbers. Um, it was last year that we're going to. I mean, it was the peak of the rainfall expectedly, but the rains came in delayed, and so I was caught in between planting watermelon because it doesn't require a lot of water, or maize that requires more water. But rain wasn't coming. It was like, okay, if I go into watermelon, right, and the rain comes in too heavy, I will lose it. But if I go into maize and the rain, so you know what I did? So what I did was put my irrigation into motion and say, let's do both, right? And find a way to shield my watermelon like greenhouse. Again, I don't have greenhouse. Again, because of the cost implication. At the end of the day, because we are all going into the same market, just as you said earlier. I mean, a few years ago, we used to import maize seed into this country. Pioneer seed is a breed from the US and Brazil, DuPont, and it was quite expensive. A 12.5 kg bag with 50,000 kernels in it was costing about 60,000 naira. And I'm going to the same market of somebody who is planting premier seed, right? Which at that time was probably 300 naira per kilogram. You know, no, when you get to them, nobody's going to say pioneer seed one side, premier seed one side. Everybody is going to the same market, the same buyers. You don't even know the difference until probably So um, it's been um, it's been a journey of multiple challenges, right? And I would say that, I mean, back to your question of funding, government needs to do a lot more. And I'm not even saying necessarily that government should give farmers cash. One of the things that we had advocated for is, okay, let the inputs be available to farmers, the seeds, and not like what happened during one previous administration. I think that was around 2011 thereabouts, under GSK, when Professor Kim Additional or Doctor was the Minister of Agriculture, and they made efforts to ensure that farmers had access to some level of inputs like maize and rice grain, right, for planting. Again, not good enough, just about 10 kilograms. I mean, you require minimum of 20 to 25 kilograms to do an hectare of maize. Again, I talk in hectares of maize, but government is saying they're giving you 10 kilograms of maize. I mean, how far can that go? But you either get maize or rice. Um, but guess what also happened that year was that a lot of the grains that we got were adulterated. I mean, from experience, I had interaction with the doctor at the time. because they only gave out those contracts to just anybody, and people were just going to just mop up grains and seeds from wherever. They were meant to be seeds, but they were grains. I mean, by the time my plants, I mean, survived, you'll see yellow kernel, blue white, all combined in a cob. And then a couple of them didn't even survive at all. So it means that government needs to do a lot more by ensuring that. I mean, I would say that we do not I've not met in my lifetime, 15 years plus doing it. I've not met an extension officer before. We hear the extension officers. We need to. I mean, we ordinarily the registered ones in each local government, but I've never met one before. When we're running a farm project in Oyo, we're going to start doing aggregation, and so we felt that if we reached out to extension officers, we'll be able to get locations where farmers existed. And then we went to the local government. We got a list of extension officers. But guess what? By the time we started putting focus through, it was probably one old woman who doesn't even know how, I mean, one guy who is probably in Lagos and we're in Oyo. So they just got some numbers. Maybe those guys are being paid from government. We don't know. So I think that government needs to be deliberate and see food security as um, something very, very important to ensure that farmers are well informed. One of the easiest ways to get across to ensure that farmers are well informed is to have trained extension officers that will go into the farm areas and enlighten farmers to understand, I mean, best practice. Okay. I would say this, and I used to use that as an example. Some of us, when we go to the market today and you want to buy vegetable, and you see those ones that are perforated, you will run away from them. You want to go for those fresh ones, green leaves, and But guess what? Some of those ones that you see that are green leaves and whatever were probably sprayed a day or 2 days before they were harvested and brought to the market. The impact of those chemicals on those plants had not even gone down, but they are there in the market for us to buy, and then we are rushing after them, fresh vegetable. But some of those perforated ones are probably farmers who probably didn't spray, and then they found themselves in the market, but we run away from them. So I think that there's a lot that needs to be done, both by the government at all the levels, not just I mean, I realize that sometimes a lot of us focus on the federal government on agriculture, but again, I mean, all lands, okay, are within the jurisdiction of, of state governors, not even the federal government. So state governments are the ones that allocate lands, right? And there needs to be um again, I know there are some farm centers, some of them built way back in the days of Awolowo, in the days of Obasanjo when he was military head of state. But today, the state governments that we have, some of them are just trying to revive some of those farm centers. I won't mention this state government within Southwest. 2 years ago, I saw him on TV giving out stems of cassava as his own way of supporting farmers. And I said, even as a smallholder farmer that I am, I mean, maybe a medium, if you request for stems that would plant 100 hectares of farmland, I'll provide them for you within a week. And a state governor, I mean, not that he sent his representative, the delegate or representative, a state governor in Southwest here, and then they were doing video, take stem of cassava, stem of cassava. And I'm like, this isn't food security, right? This isn't sustainable. This is not farm credit, right? Government needs to ensure that those inputs are readily available for farmers on credit. We're not saying give it to us for free. At the end of the day, we're going to sell, make profit, and then pay back to the government. I mean, a systemic way, such that when the extension officers are there, they can also help to monitor how, so that people don't get those inputs and then go to resell, which was what happened that year. I mean, government wanted everybody to come and register as a farmer, right? And then we went there and I mean, they had about 60,000 thereabouts. But guess what? People who don't even have 1 meter land to plant, all registered. And then what were they not doing? At the point of collection, they were just selling to the real farmers. They buy, get the free fertilizer from government, 1 bag, and then sell to us that needed it. So government needs to do a lot more in terms of credits. Thank you very much.
I'm sure if we can put our hands together, please, for Mr. Laude. I'm sure if we leave Mr. Abiodun, he can go on and on and on and on because there are so many challenges in the agricultural sector. I think one key thing that he mentioned is weak policy. So it's not like we do not have policies or reforms to ensure that farmers engage in sustainable agriculture, but the policies are not effectively enacted. And so that again brings me to Mr. Bankole. No, please, Mr. Kaluzia. Mr. Abiodun has mentioned a lot about how it is difficult for farmers to get things as basic as seeds, how financing is difficult. As someone, again, I would like to say that in this panel, please permit me to say you are representing the law side, the policy side. How do you, what policies or what reforms do we have today that that needs to be reenacted, that needs to be revived to ensure that sustainable agriculture is the future? What policies do we have today?
Okay. I think there is a difference between law and policy. That's the starting point. The law itself has, forgive the pedantic, but has the force of law, right? It can be enforced. Policy is just that. It's policy. But because of the way our laws are written here, the Constitution particularly, you have, laws at the federal level. You also have laws at the state level, all right? I think Doctor had mentioned NOSTRA, the Oil Spill Act. We have NESRA as well. There's also the PIA that is fairly recent. And all of these combined, they focus on, pollution, environmental sustainability, and all of that. And I think the common theme from these laws is that they were not really written with the agricultural sector in mind. Okay. And I think the one thing I would say is, in terms of the advocacy of these laws, they are quite fragmented, right? And maybe the way to go would be to have one composite law that really focuses on the sector itself to address these gaps and all of that. You may have your policy statements, but unless and until that they are written down into actual actionable laws, I'm not sure would actually make significant progress. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaluzia. I don't know if Mr. Wongo is back with us. Is he back with us? Mr. Wongo, can you hear us? I can hear you clearly. Yes, thank you so much, sir. Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Yes. So the question I asked earlier was, what are some of your biggest challenges? We know what high rep does. We know the remediation work that you do. So what are some of the biggest challenges you've had in agricultural polluted regions? What are some of the biggest challenges you've had as a body? Okay, so thank you very much. I was thinking that most would give a few background notes. Just like you noted, the hydrocarbon pollution review project is a project under the Federal Ministry of Environment, and we are basically implementing the recommendations of the United Nations Environment Program reports on the Ogoni. And among those reports, apart from the remediation of the impacted land, is the issue of provision of alternative livelihood to the. When you look at, can you hear me? Yes, sir, very loud and clear. Well, okay, so when you look at the level of devastation of hydrocarbon to the livelihoods of the people, you understand the need to not only provide alternative livelihood, but to equally commit and follow through, ensuring that the return to their livelihood, which of course is mainly farming and fishing. And so hybrid is on the verge of that. I didn't go into all of those details, but then we are actually on the verge of that. Very importantly is our federal government food security policy and how we're going about with local farmers, especially cassava growers in Ogoni, through training and providing them with cassava stem, improved cassava stem from the um, from one of these agencies. I can't get the name now, but we're providing them improved cassava stems, and we are training them on smart farming. And then the truth of the matter is that
until our people begin to produce food enough to go around the communities, we cannot actually say we have reached our target of ensuring food security in the area. But beyond that, just like I said, communities need to go back to farming. We are partnering the University of Port Harcourt to produce improved biofertilizer, to engage even in improving soil fertility in already remediated land. So that's a number of that's part of what we're doing alongside other interventions. But the challenge again, has been that this is one of the biggest remediation projects we are having, one of the biggest vision projects we're having. And then the technology adopted for this has to be environmentally friendly, and of course, would also need to quickly remediate the impacted areas, and then have our people go back to farming. So one of the major challenges is the fact that, yeah, there are growing expectations. The fact that they want this cleanup, done immediately. But like science, it is not a quick fix. We have to go through all the rudiments to ensure that, yes, once we say we have cleaned this place, it is no longer contaminated, and so that it could be transferred to agricultural produces when local people go back to farming. So we are working very closely with the National Detection and Response Agency to certify that all the land we say we have remediated indeed are remediated, and community people we go back to farming. So expectation, yes, is a big challenge. And then the issue of the terrain, and a number of other bureaucratic conditions in terms of
So much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've lost you here, but I think that we've gotten some of the things that you have said. Partnership is what I find that you stressed a lot here. How your organization, I highlight, is partnering with all that, with Uniport, with organizations, to just ensure that they get seeds, to ensure that they have what they need to help farmers go back to their livelihood. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please, can we put our hands together for a bit for Professor Zabe? Um, we've heard what Mr. Terry has mentioned. He has talked about how it's not like we do not have policies, but they are weakly and enacted. They are not effectively complied with. We've also heard Mr. Abiodun talk about how sustainable agriculture is not as cheap. Although it is the future, it is not cheap. And so I would just like to ask Mr. Bankole, what are some of the what gaps do we have in the sustainable agricultural sector that people can tap into? What are the opportunities in sustainable agriculture that people who want to go into sustainable agriculture can tap into?
So if I take it from finance and also you know maybe resources or business sector. So I'll say around finance, like there's so much that how do we improve?
Yes, please. If you are a stakeholder here, you might want to take notes. This is an important part. You want to tap into sustainable agriculture where there's a lot of money. So you might want to get your pen and your paper. Please, Mr. Bankole, you can continue.
Okay. I think so. Finance for cooperatives is very important, right? We know that for many banks and many businesses who are supposed having to know your customers or how do customers pay back also is something of also greater interest to them. The fact that they want to support you to do business. So we've seen that using a cooperative model, always found a way of making things work up to a certain level. So creating possibly, I don't know whether single digit is ever going to be possible, but nearness to single digit kind of patient capital And also, we need to also look at how do we create some access to resources that search or innovation-backed businesses can have access to it as well. I think anyone that is interested in renewable energy also can see that as a investment for agriculture. Uh, Logistics also is a good major source, to support agriculture, because I mean farmers are very good at what they do. We need more farmers, we know, right? More for, but we need a bit more infrastructure-driven kind of investments, like farm estates. We need to look at specific sector kind of systems where we can scale some particular kind of products. So we need in Nigeria. I think there's a lot of investment in more farm estates. I think if more people put heads together, either as a group, individual, or as a consortium, to form farm estate, I think that it might just go a little bit further down to help farmers, be able to produce more. Also, I, I, I mean, we've been trying to, identify how to improve access to extension workers. And the question behind it still remains, who is going to finance extension workers, right? So one thing we did at the NCIC was to design an extension workers skill program, but it was very obvious that finance to power it also has to be, it's something that has to be thought of, very clearly. So we also came up with a concept note on a structural financing system for extension workers, and that will call across from having blended finance, having private capital, you know, you know grants, as the case may be. So in terms of investment, I think a lot more infrastructure driven kinds of investment, I think, is what will help us scale further. There are too many micro and nano farmers struggling and grappling every day. I think if we create a system to improve their capacity in areas where they don't have, or sorry, not capacity, improve their capability. I'm tired of that line, capacity building. I think it's stressful. It is like the biggest scam where they just box you into a corner where nothing ever happens. So I think capability for me is the main cause here. So a little bit of investment, or a bit more investment in infrastructure, that will improve the capability of farmers to do more. If a farmer is farming, or rather, we've got that lovely orange or citrus plantation or spread somewhere in Benue State, where everybody says. In fact, I used to have a mechanic then that had over 3,000 trees in his farm in Abuja, but his farm is in Benue. But his biggest problem, everything he says it is, okay, how do I carry these things from that farm out that will not cost me an arm and a leg, right? So on his farm, then you could buy a whole bag of orange for maybe 500 naira in Benue. Probably it's still up to that now, who knows? But to get it out, by the time it gets to Abuja, it's likely like 10,000 naira or 15,000 naira. So again, how do we help more farmers have access to infrastructure? Somebody has to invest in it. It should not be government. Again, I repeat, it should not be government. We should we should we should try and
We hear
create
you loud and
systems
clear.
where we can invest in infrastructure to help farmers also get the best of their yield. Because there's nothing as painful as farming over 20 tons of tomatoes, and then at the end you could sell only 5. Imagine all the loan that you have borrowed, and that's why this man here, I'm sure, I don't know whether he has BP drugs or something, but he's looking too calm to be a farmer. I don't understand how he's doing his own, because when you hear what these people go through, I mean, even to blast them will be, you have a fear of God. So we need a bit more infrastructure, and this is calling on, VCs, venture financiers, investors, or anyone there who is trying to look for green projects as we try to deceive ourselves within the green space. Um, Everyone says that there are no green projects in Nigeria. I think there are too many green projects in Nigeria, and we just have to really draw down that big number of money we speak at the top, and then find a way of drawing it down, for those that are going to use that money. So there's a whole lot of investments in farm estates, in terms of land use. There's a whole lot of investment in logistics, long term, short term. There's a whole lot of investments opportunities in processing, right? Small scale, large scale. There's a whole lot of opportunity in energy, because you need fuel, solar, diesel, whatever it is you need. We need as much as we can get, right? be able to power this food security dream that we need. So again, energy for food security is very important. I've mentioned logistics, and then we need to create. There's a whole lot of investment also in storage. We need to find a way also to help storage so that we don't lose most of the things that we farm. Then access to credit. I mean, everybody needs money, even that. So we should look at how do we create. We should also invest in um, large scale shipping, because again, a friend came from Ghana and they were looking for 20 tons of compost in Nigeria. It was a big problem. He called from Sokoto down to Meduguri, all the way down to me. I was almost calling Niger. We couldn't find 20 tons. We could find small pockets of maybe 1 ton here. But now the question is, who's going to bear the cost of mopping everything together and bring it down to Lagos for it to be shipped out? So we need to invest in logistics for agriculture. On private sector, this is a call to private sector and all bunch of investors and innovators out there. Logistics is very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bankole. I hope we took notes. I want to believe that at the end of this event, we have people who venture into um, different, we have people who will take advantage of this gap that he has mentioned and these opportunities. Nigeria loses 3.5 trillion um, of to post-harvest loss. So it means that we need to begin to look at storage. People need to invest in storage. We need to look at logistics. Taking farm produce from the farms to the market is expensive. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why food prices is expensive, because of logistic costs. So there are so many opportunities that we can take away from what Mr. Bankole has said. And I hope that we take advantage of this panel today. I want to just go again um, to Mr. Abiodun. As we round off, I want to go to Mr. Abiodun. In your own experience as a farmer, how has environmental pollution affected you? I know just before this panel, you were telling me about how climate change has been one of your biggest issue in one of your farms. So has environmental issue affected you in terms of air pollution and all kinds of environmental issues? Has it affected and your own farm work and then your profits?
Right. So earlier on, I'd mentioned this carbon that I experienced. I mean, so imagine, I mean, I went that year, I mean, it was not so much of a big size of watermelon farm I cultivated, but it was about an hectare. So what I was doing was, I mean, I had um, a house, a residence outside of the farm. So around 4 a.m., I'll drive into the farm, ensure that I kickstart my irrigation early. I'll stay back till evening because you don't irrigate when the sun is out. I mean, and then after going through all of that stress, you wake up one morning and you find out that there's a black substance on your crop, and it goes down the drain, and that's the end of all the efforts. I mean, that's some 10 years ago thereabouts. All the efforts, all the waking up, all the leaving my comfort zone in Lagos to come do that. I mean, just went down the drain. So um, beyond that, when this topic came up, I then realized that, over the years, we keep saying that our yield output um, in this part of the world is very low. I mean, Nigeria's yield output for maize is still about 1 ton, or maybe one. I mean, there was a year that I think one of our great conferences, one of the highly rated guys in the industry, Kola Masha, who has something doing in the north, and we had a farm in Oyo at the time. And when he was speaking, he was talking about how they were doing 1 ton of maize. And I'm like, how can Kola Masha be talking about 1 ton of maize per hectare? Because I was expecting that he was going to come up with strategies how they were achieving 6, 7 tons Pangona projects. But because they have a lot of farmers under their, about 20,000 farmers or thereabouts, but that's low. I mean, in South Africa, when we had our project in Oyo, up until 2021, 2022, we had brought in, so our first year, aquashoot at the time, we had done about 1 ton. And then the second year we need to improve. So we have brought in this guy from a part of that precision agriculture from South Africa. We installed the device on our horsepower capacity tractor, a self-driven whatever on the tractor. So that we had a 16-row planter, maize planter, which was quite heavy. In fact, in the whole of Nigeria, we couldn't get mechanics to fix those machines. We had to bring in somebody from Uganda, small Uganda there. That's just probably just one airport. You know. you know. Because we had to, we traveled to Uganda, we had to poach this guy from where he was working in Uganda, brought him in. I'm saying that our machine breaks down in the middle of operations, and we have to wait for a mechanic from Kaduna. We have to pay for his flight ticket. Imagine you're planting and then something goes wrong, maybe something hydraulics or whatever. Then you have to wait for somebody in Kaduna who comes in and just says, 2 days after we pay for his flight ticket, just do this way, just finds a way around it. And then we had to now go to look for a 4-row planter to hire to be able to complete that project. Until we brought in somebody from Uganda, and and that gave us peace of mind. What I was trying to say about Yield is, this guy came from South Africa, and he said South Africa was doing 12 tons per hectare of maize, and here we are doing 1 ton. I didn't realize one of the things strategies we had to deploy was that we realized that our soil needed to be broken. We realized that when rainfall comes, right, there's a bit of leach that goes. The water doesn't go down to the root of the soil. The water just erodes away. So we have to break our soil, by ripping the soil. And guess what happened after we did that? The season that after we did that, we got 5.5 tons yield of maize. Which was, I mean, we didn't see it coming. And so, we learned a big lesson from there. So each time I'm in a farm area and I see people doing things, and I'm like, you won't get result. Your soil needs to be broken down. So I also think that beyond just that, there's a lot of things that we are not getting right because of the knowledge gap. It took us to bring in somebody from Uganda, from South Africa, to be able to give us results. One other thing is that, so beyond just the quality of seeds or seedlings that we still don't have, is that environmental impact. These chemicals that we spray in year out have impact on our soil. It means that no matter, so I'll give us an example. Fall armyworm is an infestation that came into Nigeria, I think in 2016. Prior to 2016, we never used to spray, um, fight any infections or insects or the pest on our maize on 2017. Now you realize that what then was happening was that it was the same seeds. It was common with the hybrid seeds, okay, not the local varieties. But even though research has also not really shown us so much, but we know that there are chemicals that we're able to use that helps us prevent and fight fall armyworm. But from my own little knowledge, right, I think that the environment has been so polluted that, I mean, this farmer may not be experiencing it. That farmer is. And within a single of and I'll share this experience with you. The first year we experienced fall armyworm, we had planted, we had applied fertilizer within the first couple of days, and I only traveled back to Lagos for the weekend. By the time I was back on the farm on Tuesday, the maize I planted, all I was just seeing was broom, no longer maize. The entire green leaves had been eaten. That was the first experience. So what did we do? I was naive. We brought in our tractor again and replowed that farm again, and then replanted and said whatever this was. And so after I planted, I didn't travel. Waited for the first 5 6 days. No. I think I traveled for a week. By the time I came back, the previous time she only traveled for 2 weeks. I'll be back before that. By 1 week, I was looking at worms. We brought in our sprayers. We started spraying like no man's business. Guess what? We lost the entire 4 hectares again. That's about 10 acres. After that, I said I was done. I was not going back to maize. So we had to change the crop that we planted. But I had to do extensive research, travel to Ibadan, met a man who is a chemical expert, chemical engineer at the time. He had worked with Shell. So he now recommended one particular chemical way back. In fact, the chemical were quite old. It was from him I got to know. Maybe scientists there will prove me wrong that chemicals, the longer they are, right, the older they are, the more effective they become. we got some chemicals there that we put these worms directly in the chemical, and these worms won't die. They were that powerful. And then, but by the time I used my largest chemicals, they were effective. But guess what? It was late. A lot of money. I mean, that year it was just about 70 hectares of maize, 70 not acres, 70 hectares of maize that were planted at different spots of the farm, and then we lost it. But I would say that, I mean, my finding shows that it's the environment, right? The ozone layer depletion. These were not things that our forefathers used to experience. I mean, when they were planting, they would plant, they would go home, they could predict when it will rain. I mean, they could predict when it is dry season. When we're being taught agriculture in
Thank you
junior
so
secondary
much,
school, I'm
Mr.
rounding up, sorry.
Biodun.
I mean, we were told that there were two seasons. Rains will start here now, rain will end. But right now, don't you dare, don't you dare rely on those information. Thank you very much.
I knew that Mr. Biodun was the right person to ask this question because, again, he has over a decade of experience in agriculture. So you can imagine the kind of challenges that he has had to face time and time and time again. Thank you so much, Mr. Biodun. We hope that with this conversation we're having here today, we hope that sustainable agriculture would help to mitigate some of the challenges that you have to face, particularly as in regards to environmental issues. I don't know if Professor Zabi is still with us. Okay, okay, he's no longer. Okay, yes, Professor Zabi, please, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is Wigo representing the
Okay. Oh, Mr. Wigo, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for staying on the call. I would just like to ask you. So when you spoke first, you mentioned a lot about partnership. How High Rep was partnering with institutions. You mentioned Uniport. So I would just like to ask you this question: How do you how what kind of partnership can we, particularly not just partnership with the private sector, but partnership with the state and the federal sectors? What kind of partnerships do we need to ensure that? What kind of partnership? What kind of state? Can you hear me, sir? Yes. What kind of state and federal partnerships do we need to ensure that sustainable agriculture is achievable? What kind of state and federal partnerships do we need to ensure that sustainable agriculture is possible?
Okay, so basically, food security is a national policy, and then PREP is working very closely with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture towards ensuring that we provide improved seeds for the people of Ogoni. Apart from the training we are offering, even in partnership with the University of Dicot. I mentioned earlier that we're also partnering the University of Dicot to produce bio fertilizer just to improve the quality of our already remediated area. But very importantly is the fact that HyPrep is in talks with the African Development Bank. I mentioned that earlier to establish a cassava hub because that's the main crop around this place. To establish a cassava hub for the. Can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, so HyPrep is in talks with the African Development Bank to establish a cassava hub. It's going to be big because that will enable us get more young persons employed, improve the farm products and all the deliverables, the farm gates quality and all of that. So that's what we are doing in terms of partnership. For us in HyPrep, we believe in SDG 17, which is partnership for development, working closely with relevant bodies, civil society organizations, to ensuring that we deliver, especially on the alternative livelihood aspect of the cleanup program. So we are in talks with a number of organizations, and of course we are still open to all forms of partnership to ensuring that our people get back to their main stake, which is fishing and farming.
Thank you. Please, can we just put our hands together for him as we round off this session? Thank you so much. So, our panelists, thank you so much. I want to thank Mr. Bankole, I thank Mr. Akaluzia, I thank Mr. Biadu, and I also thank Professor Zabi, who was ably represented by Mr. Wigo. Thank you so much. So as we round off, I would just like to mention that some of the key takeaways from this panel is we need partnership. We need partnership. For us to achieve sustainable agriculture, we cannot do it alone. Farmers cannot do it by themselves. They need partnership from both the private sector and the state sectors and also the federal sectors. We also need to ensure that our policies are effected. And so it has been established today that we have policies, but they are weakly, implemented. They are not, and they are not strongly enforced. So we need to ensure that the policies that we have to ensure that we achieve a sustainable agriculture is effectively implemented. Thank you so much, our beautiful audience, and thank you so much to all our panelists.
Thank you so much, Face Shola. That was really beautiful. All right, now it's time for picture photograph. I'm going to be inviting the editor of Business Day Nigeria. Okay, let's have this first. Please, Lolade Akimerole, please put your hands together for him. And also, we're going to be having Dr. Adegboyega Idris is a representative. Please hold on. Please hold on. Our panelists, please hold on. Dr. Adegboyega Idris is representing the Commissioner for Agriculture, Lagos State. Please let's have you for a picture photograph. Please put your hands together. All right, Dr. Arize, can we have you also? They say pictures tells a thousand tale. This actually tells millions of tales. Powerhouse. Please put your hands together for them. One second. There. Perfect. All right. Our panelists, please. Let's still have you. We still have you because we have certain people who want to ask questions. I'm sure from everything that was said today, we have questions. So please, if you have questions, do raise your hand. Yeah. One, two. You can't tell me you don't have questions because here on the panelists today, we had somebody who is a farmer and he spends all his time on the farm. And we also have someone who said he's just a mere lawyer and someone who we actually claim is a climate expert. From all he said, it's not a claim anymore. We can see that he's actually a climate expert. And also the mere lawyer. It's not just a mere lawyer, but he identifies as one. So those that have questions, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to go with the pretty lady first. I'm going to go with the pretty lady. Please, where's the mics? Can we have the mics passed around? Okay.
Good morning, everyone. It's already afternoon. My name is Helena Drodola, and I'm currently starting a research on feeding strategy for dairy cows. So I'm very well in the agricultural sector. It's over 13 months ago. I was working with Lagos State government. Good afternoon, Dr. Idris, as an agricultural officer, and then I had to leave for my master's in agricultural sciences. I'll just say one of the things that I would say saddened me about some of the comments made in this section was when she said something about um, sustainable agriculture is expensive. I think some of these notions are kind of incorrect, or would I say flawed? And I think I totally understand what we mean when we say that, because before I left for England for my masters, I kind of had the same sentiments. And I would in fact say in classes when we had debates about does food security and sustainability mean the same thing? We can start asking ourselves, can we have the both at the same time? I went there with the notion that when we are thinking of food security, we are fighting to make it possible to produce everything. It doesn't matter what is going to happen to the planet. But that's not always the case, because it's in realizing that what we do to the environment, because that's already something that the editor already said in his keynote speech, was that what we do to the environment is going to affect agricultural production. I'll take, for example, farmers spraying, just spraying, or would I say, I would start with the fact that sometimes it seems like the government unknowingly incentivize wrong agricultural practices when you supply people with fertilizers and sprayers, and they don't use it with a consciousness of the right way to use it. I would also give an example. If somebody sprays too much, you end up killing natural enemies of, natural enemies of your crop pest. You end up killing, or just say organisms that even help soil fertility because of how you use all of these things. And also put in perspective, whenever we ask people to join the agricultural sector, it's almost sounding as if we're asking people to do us a favor. We're talking about air pollution now. We talked about oil and gas a lot, but we are not talking about the fact that in agriculture we're also polluting the air. In fact, I think in COP 28, that was when it really was highlighted that yeah, methane emission in agriculture is actually a lot. Methane is a very serious greenhouse gas, and I would say even that's why I'm doing my PhD on feeding strategies for dairy cow because of methane emission in the dairy sector. And it's not only dairy cattle or animals that produce methane. Even waste of agricultural produce is a lot of methane production into the environment. So even now, when we say, "Oh, we're not able," I'm very sorry, this is not a question, but I just had to say it. But when we say, "Oh, we are not able to transport our foods," what's the implication? It's also environmental pollution. It's us releasing what we cannot afford to, would I say, process, what we cannot afford to market. We end up losing it to the environment, and it's also to our detriment. We are not able to, help food security, and we're also polluting the environment in doing this. So it's not just about, we are doing a favor, or we are taking extra steps to make agriculture sustainable. When it's not sustainable, it's also detrimental. It is not profitable for us to be to not practice sustainability, because I don't want us to live with the idea that sustainability is very, very difficult, because it isn't. And then I also put that another one of the things that I also thought about is when you talked about policies, you already said laws and policies that we don't necessarily have so much in terms of agriculture. And I think you are very right about that. We can still really do a lot when it comes to the right policies. I'll just give an example. It's not only penalties, and sometimes it always feels like, oh, okay, when the government intervenes, like private sector should act, and that's very correct. Private sector should act, but the government really has a huge role to play in encouraging people to action. I'll give an example of policies in the United Kingdom and the EU that I would say work, but I don't feel like all these policies are policies that we can directly implement, because we are clearly different. But there are things that we can adopt, things that we can model to suit what works here. The example I'll give is the SFI, which is Sustainable Farming Incentives. Government can incentivize sustainable practices. In the UK, and I would say in the EU rather, because after the Brexit, even currently now, they are trying to scrape some of the SFIs in the United Kingdom because they don't seem to afford it. Those people are very broke, by the way. Um, but the EU is still able to incentivize this thing. But in it being able to, this is what these SFIs look like. You can tell farmers not to farm a particular area, and they get paid for not farming that area, just because it could be a protected land. It could just be the fact that they're also crops there that can encourage biodiversity promotion, and just really be good for, and hedgerows and different kind of things are being incentivized. If the government can do all these things, especially invest into agricultural supply chains, like those people that process, those people that transport, logistics, really help people do these things, and when they can finally stand on their 2 feet, because there are already a lot of people doing good work in Nigeria, that a lot of farmers that can say, oh, of a truth, whenever I produce, there's people that off take from me, and they're always happy about production. But that's not the story of every farmer. But I'm seeing a lot of farmers can say that, but not every farmer can say that. And these are things I feel like, and I'm very happy that Dr. Idris is here. These are things that I think people in the government can take home and just really see that they have a very huge role to play to encourage farmers, and really see that we get there. Sustainable agriculture is not expensive. It is very helpful. It is going to help us so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I didn't get your name.
My name is Elena Drodola.
Please put your hands together for Elena. I'm going to take in one more question. I'm going to take from the answer man right here. Calling him that since morning, so please pardon me.
Uh, good good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nabirichi. I'm a lawyer. I work with Business Day. My question is for Dr. Arinze, and it's centered on you made a very beautiful presentation on gas flaring, but my question is centered on whether we need a novel carbon credit system. There's a hydrocarbons tax that was introduced by the PIA. It's anyone's guess as to how the implementation has been about. But now there is a global discourse about climate change, and we're already around the next COP, and it's getting tiring because Africa goes to COP and we keep hearing the same thing that, oh, Africa is not a huge emitter but will suffer the most adverse consequences of climate change, and we still have the big oil companies globally saying, oh, we're not that, we're not investing on new oil fields, we're trying to look more green and all that. But I think Nigeria has a huge role to play in Africa. Your chart shows why we're, I mean, behind Libya just in oil reserves. So how can we nudge these IOCs and local companies in the right direction? How can we show leadership, and how can we stop, attending COP conferences with our hands open like we're looking for favors, and lead the conversation on climate change in Africa? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I was looking to ask a question, but then the question was directed to me. So, as you're asking the question, I was just kind of thinking. So, I think there are a couple of things that we can do. The lady just mentioned incentive. Now, every company in the oil sector, they're looking for incentives. You need to give them an incentive to actually invest in technologies that can reduce the pollution from gas flaring. If they don't have those incentives, they are not going to invest. Simple, right? They're not going to invest. Now, the IOCs are moving to offshore mostly. We just saw what happened with Shell, right? Mobil is moving, Chevron, they're doing the same thing. The question is, why are they moving offshore? Because now there are new technologies that you can actually implement that can help you reduce the flaring, that can help you to become more green, and they are moving there so that they can do those things that they have said they're going to do internationally. Now they're leaving the onshore with the old technologies that have always been there. No local company is going to invest in new technology in an already existing oil field. They're going to use what is there and try to milk it as much as possible. And those oil fields are producing more gas flaring. So the question now is, which incentives can the government give them for them to reduce the gas flaring in those onshore oil fields? Knowing that to actually reduce it, you need to invest a lot to change what is already existing, and then now try to start, you could say, producing the oil. Now, personally, what I think is government doesn't have the patience to wait for them to invest in new infrastructure. Based on the target that we have of producing how many barrels per day, 2 million, we're not even meeting up, right? And oil is a big source of revenue for the government. So imagine telling the government, please, you need to wait for like 2, 3 years for us to invest in a new technology that can reduce gas flaring. And in those 2, 3 years, you're not gonna get in revenue. I mean, just off your head, no government is gonna agree to that. So the question now is, for there to be a solution, there has to be a cost and benefit analysis. There's a cost to it. So what can Nigeria do or the government do to say, okay, this is the way we want to go? If we don't do that, we'll always go to the COP and then we'll be hearing the same thing. And being frank, sometimes our people don't care. That is just another thing. As far as we can produce the oil, it doesn't matter whether the pollution is there. The site is already polluted. So what can we do? Right? Yes. So sometimes they say it was already polluted, and then when you speak to companies, they tell you,
Some of the things that you raised as hurdles. Some of the things that you raised as hurdles.
Again, probably that's not Lagos State. In Lagos State, it's happening real time. I want to like just add that please check out Lagos State Ministry of Agric website. You get all these facts there. They do really exist. It's not just on paper. Not to just scroll the 8C. Yeah, sorry, we call it 8C. That's the Honorable Commissioner. Where's to that? I would give a speech in absentia. Speech by the Honorable Commissioner, Minister of Agriculture and Food Systems, a national workshop on animal pollution and agricultural productivity in Nigeria by Business Day Media, held today, 9th November 2025. Protocols duly observed. Distinguished esteemed guests and partners, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this crucial dialogue on air, land, and livelihoods, building a sustainable agricultural future for Nigeria. As Honorable Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Systems in Lagos State, I'm honored to share insights and leadership on this vital intersection of environmental quality and food security. It depends fundamentally on the health of our air and land, two essential elements that sustain livelihoods across the nation. Yet, rising air pollution from industrial activities such as gas flaring, vehicle emissions, and open burning increasingly threatens both soil and crop productivity. This environmental degradation poses serious risks to agricultural resilience, rural economies, and ultimately national food security. Lagos State, as a pioneer in urban agriculture and climate adaptation, understands that safeguarding air and land quality is critical to sustaining our food systems. We are committed to addressing the intertwined challenges of air quality, land health, and agricultural livelihoods. And our experience has shown that a sustainable agricultural future requires integrating environmental stewardship with innovative farming practices and inclusive policies that support farmers and communities. This workshop is a timely and important platform to deepen collaboration, enhance research, and spark practical policy actions that protect agriculture while addressing the environmental challenges with livelihood support are viewed as interconnected priorities in building a sustainable agricultural future for Nigeria. To realize this future, we must implement integrated strategies, enforcing robust environmental regulation to reduce pollutants, promoting climate-smart agricultural technologies, providing farmers with resources and knowledge to adapt sustainably, and raising public awareness of the link between air, land, and livelihoods. Lagos State remains committed to leading by example and partnering with together we can forge a resilient, inclusive agricultural system that protects natural resources, supports economic growth, and ensures food security for all Nigerians. Lagos State has pioneered integrated approaches to fortify our food systems against environmental degradation while ensuring sustainable economic growth to mitigate these realities. Some of our programs are responses to challenges on our multiple fronts. For example, our central food security system and logistic hub in Ekpe is the biggest of its kind in West Africa. Earlier on, I had someone talking about post-harvest losses. This scheme is meant to tackle that. Is a massive storage facility at Ekpe currently in construction phase. By first quarter of next year, it will roll out. It has cold storage facility. It has massive silos that will hold products. For Lagos State, for as much as 3 months at a stretch. That's the plan. This infrastructure helps reduce waste and improve air quality by lowering emissions caused by spoilage and inefficient transportation. The Eco Agro Mechanization Program equips farmers with modern fuel-efficient tractors and implements that reduce reliance on traditional polluting farming methods, helping to improve air quality and increase productivity simultaneously. Through the Lagos Agripreneurship Program, Lagos Agri Scholars Program, we train and empower thousands of young agripreneurs and students with knowledge on climate-smart agriculture practices that conserve both soil health, reduce greenhouse emissions, and support sustainable livelihoods. Also, in the Ministry of Agric, our trader money initiative support. That's why I said that if you say you don't have that on ground, that's not in Lagos State. This is a project that supports small-scale value chain actors to adopt cleaner, more efficient business practices, including waste management, green logistics, which contribute to better air and land conditions around marketplaces that targets the marketplaces as it were.
Lagos State Food Festival and related public engagement initiatives celebrate and promote sustainable local food production, emphasizing eco-friendly innovations and cultural stewardship of land resources. Additionally, we have the Igodu Feedlot project. This is a cattle ranch in the making. It's at Igodu Ekpe. This is meant to combat environmental degradation by promoting controlled livestock supply and reducing reliance on unhealthy polluting imports. These programs collectively build resilience into our agricultural system by addressing environmental pressures on air and land while enhancing economic and social livelihoods. Lagos State's approach exemplifies how urban and urban agriculture, innovative mechanization, youth empowerment, infrastructure modernization, and sustainable livestock management form a cohesive response to the environmental challenges we face. As we gather today, let us use this platform to deepen our multi-sectoral collaboration, integrate air quality management into agricultural policies, and scale up climate-smart interventions nationwide. Our future depends on ensuring that Nigeria's air is clean, our land is fertile, and our farmers and agrarians thrive sustainably. Before I drop the mic, like I said earlier on, I'm a vet. And what we seem to be pushing all along as a fight so far is what we call One Health. That One Health is like an interplay of animal health, which we safeguard as vets, human health, which the medics take care of, and environmental health. That triangle of key players, animal health, human health, and environmental health, forms One Health, or Global One Health, as they call it. The control, effectiveness lies in all of us seated here. As an individual, you take care of your environment as if you own it forever. As a veterinary player, I handle the animal health aspect. As a medical doctor, human health aspect is handled. And together, we form a better world. Thank you.
Please put your hands together for Dr. Adegboyega Idris. The farmer is smiling. I'm sure he has gotten solutions to all of the problems that he mentioned today. So we are drawing to a close of this wonderful event. But I must say something. Every time I get to see a woman who is a lawyer, I tell myself that, oh my God, she did what she couldn't do. And I'm always blown because I've always wanted to be a lawyer, but I was too lazy to spend 5 years in school. So for our closing remark, please let's put our hands together for Nkem Umedi Onyedika. She's the manager, legal business unit, Business Day, as she gives us a closing remark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, as you mentioned, my name is Nkem Umadi Onyedika. I'm a lawyer and the manager of the legal business unit of Business Day Media. So I'm sure we've all had an interesting conversation. We've picked one or two things from the panel session, and I know that when we leave here, we'll go back ready to take action. So as we draw the curtain on this national workshop, themed Air, Land and Livelihoods, Building a Sustainable Agricultural Future for Nigeria, we have heard what the panelists said, and we have picked some things from it, such as the fact that we need to have more partnerships between the federal and state governments, as well as the private sectors. And some gaps have been identified in the agricultural sector, such as logistics, renewable energy, funding. And there's also the fact that Nigeria doesn't have a problem of policies or laws, but what we have is a problem of implementation and making these laws effective and working for us, and also adapting the solutions to fit our peculiar situation. So this gathering has underscored one fundamental truth, which is the fact that the future of agriculture in Nigeria depends not only on what we plant or how much we harvest, but on how responsibly we steward the natural resources that sustain us. That is on how responsibly we manage the resources which feed us. And this conversation has shown us that protecting our air and land is not merely an environmental imperative, it is an economic necessity and a social responsibility that directly shapes livelihoods, food security, and national development. As we live here today, let us carry forward the spirit of collaboration and the urgency of action. Let the insights that have been shared here translate into tangible reforms, practical initiatives, and enduring partnerships that will ensure that Nigeria's agricultural growth is both sustainable and inclusive. On behalf of the organizers, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speakers, our sponsor, partners, and every participant who has contributed to making this workshop a success. Together, we have taken an important step toward building a cleaner, greener, and more resilient agricultural future for Nigeria. Thank you, and do have a lovely day.
We are actually coming to a close, or this is actually the close of this beautiful workshop this morning. I did learn a lot, new things, especially from the farmer, especially from also the mayor lawyer and the climate experts that just, left. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Thank you very much for sitting pretty and participating in the workshop today. My name is Deborah Eze. Like I said, I'm a broadcast journalist with Business Day Nigeria. And thank you so much for allowing me be your host for this wonderful event. Um, it's good afternoon to everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.